There we go. Sorry for the quick technical difficulties there, guys. Ooh, it is toasty in here today. Hey guys, what's up? It's Bart Johnson here. We are live. I saw we had a countdown in there, so I was getting rushed. Had to throw everything together kind of quickly to get this show off the ground today. But don't worry, we're all good. We're all good. I just, had to get ready for it. But welcome to the Saturday live show. It is Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern time, and as always, that means it's time for us to go live and hang out. And as I can see, we already have a bunch of people in the chat here. Is this not bringing up my chat window? Oh, I know why. Sorry guys, all sorts of technical difficulties there. So as you may know, you can hang out here live in the chat. We already have a few people in here. You can see Neha giving me that countdown there. Give me just one sec, guys. I need to check one thing. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. All right. Are we getting through on YouTube? All sorts of crazy stuff going on today, but we're going to press on with this right here. So yeah, where was I? Sorry, I seem a little bit frazzled today, but it's all good. Like I said, welcome to the live stream. We've got some people hanging out in the chat. I invite all of you to hang out in the chat as well. I will be referring to the chat, but today we have got a lot of content to cover because I want to talk about zcam. So I've been in a lot of live streams on other channels, and their zcam keeps popping up as people have questions about zcams, what models are out there, how they compare to some other stuff that's in the market. And of course, you know, zcam just released yet another model, the M4, that I had to take a look at the specs and try and figure out where it slots into the lineup of zcams. So I've gone and sort of pulled through all of the information that's out there on all the different zcam models, and I have compiled them together into a little presentation that will hopefully help you to figure out which zcam it might be the best for you, which one you might be interested in, and sort of see where they stack up to other cameras out there in the market. So before we dive into that, I do want to take a quick peek at the chat because we got a lot of activity going on in here. So I had seen up there, I saw Neha, you said this is going to be your last live session because you're going to be moving out of the country. Well, that's a shame. I'm assuming that wherever you're going, you're not going to be able to access YouTube. That's a shame, man. It's been great having you in here, and hopefully you can join the Discord, which there's a link down below, or, you know, obviously follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, anything that you can if you have access to it, so we can still communicate and you can still kind of keep in touch and check stuff out. Man, it is hot in here. I am dying, guys. This room has all of the computer equipment, so it gets toasty. But I have my cool iced tea to cool me off there. So give me a sec. I'm going to pop this window open. Here we go. Get a little airflow. So if any of you guys have been following along with my studio rebuild series, this is a note there. I will make sure that there is good ventilation and air conditioning in the new studio, so I won't have these issues. But let's see what we've got going on in the chat. We've got Jason, Harold, Yuri, Rob. Rob asking, is that a Lego Millennium Falcon box in the background? Yes. Yes, it is. I have not built it because it is supposedly huge, and we're going to hold off on building that until we actually move back into the house. I could do an entire thing on Legos. I got Star Wars Legos all over the place back there. Nihal says, my YouTube is not showing the messages shown on the screen of Bart. Anyone facing same issues? So is the chat not coming through on yours? Let me know if you guys aren't able to see it, but that's a good thing that we have the chat always up on here for you guys. Just going to get caught up here. They need to start paring back their lineup. They have a lot of cameras. Yes, Trevor, they do have a lot of cameras, which is why I wanted to do this. They, of course, being zcam. Pardon me, I'm falling apart. No, I'm all good. But yeah, they do have a lot of cameras, and so I wanted to break that down and sort of go through it. I pulled as much information as I possibly could, the ones that I thought were most relevant, and so we're going to take a look at that. And Rob in here with the super chat for your coffee fund. It actually, I'm not a coffee guy, so it'll go towards my Gold Peak iced tea fund, Rob. I really appreciate that. I probably go through one of these things a day. Gold Peak iced tea, the unofficial drink of my live stream. They're not a sponsor, but my wife and I decided that we really should try and get them to be a sponsor because I really do go through like one of these a day, and my wife buys them in bulk, and we have pretty much bought out every Giant in the area, Giant grocery store of it, because I just tear through it. It's good stuff. And our last comment here before we dive into the presentation. I really hope Blackmagic Design puts out a new, smaller camera like the zcams. I'm interested in the zcams, especially in form factor, but I'm far too down the Blackmagic Design rabbit hole. Yeah, so you know, I don't want to go too far into Blackmagic cameras because obviously we're talking about zcam today, but I've been a Blackmagic guy, Ursa Mini, and I have the Pocket 4K and Pocket 6K, and shoot on them regularly, but recently I did a little unexpected move and I did pick up a zcam. So this right here is my zcam E2 F6. I've been experimenting with it and playing with it. Really, really impressed with it. And I do have sample footage that I shot of my dog, you know, just when I first got it. And there is a link to that down below. It's another video on my channel. And I also did a live stream about how I rigged it up into this massive contraption. Obviously, it's a small brain of a camera, but you can rig it up into a really big cinema machine very quickly. So I have a live stream about that, also in the link down below. But don't leave here and go check those out because we got a lot to get into today. So without further ado, guys, I'm gonna get this presentation up here. All right, let me boot this up. Okay, that's correct. We've got that going there. And let's go to screen B. Here we go. All right. So I'm going to take myself off of this corner screen here and just kind of work through here. But obviously my presentation today, guys, is on zcam models and specs. So I'm going to try and break down the current lineup of zcams for you. Try and make some sense. It's not confusing. It's just that, like Trevor even said in the chat, there are so many models right now that it's kind of difficult to figure out, okay, what does this one do that that one doesn't do? What's the advantage of this one over that one? So we're gonna dive into that. So let me get my pretty face off the screen there so that you guys can see the full presentation here. And first thing we're gonna talk about, we're gonna talk about what models are currently out there. So these are the models that they currently have listed on their website. There was another one called an E2G, but I wasn't really finding it for sale anywhere, so I had it in here and then removed it. So we're gonna just disregard that one for right now. But we have the original E2. Actually, the original was the E1, which was a Kickstarter little GoPro-sized camera, actually. It was basically just a Micro Four Thirds sensor that they slapped a mount on, was pretty much what that camera was. But we don't need to go into the zcam deep history, but this is their lineup there. We have the E2, the E2C, that brand new E2 M4, which is an interesting one, the E2 S6, E2 F6, and E2 F8. Now, obviously, naming can get a little crazy because obviously they are all iterations of the E2 camera. So you've got the original E2, you've got the C, you've got the 4 or the M4, the S6, the F6, and the F8. Okay, so that's obviously we've got a lot of camera models in there. So we're looking at 6, and obviously they all do something a little bit different, whether it be sensor size, whether it be frame rates, or form factor, mount. So I've gone through and broken down into those main categories what sort of the main differences are. So we're not going to do a super deep dive. We'd be here for, you know, probably like 3-4 hours if we went deep into all of the individual specs of all 6 of those cameras. Instead, what I've done is put together some comparisons, and I can leave it to you guys if you really want to go deep into the specs of a particular one. There are links down below to each of them, and you can go and look at them on the Adorama and see all the deep specs. But let's see here what we got in chat real quick. Furworks talking about, yeah, the core of your setup there is just so small and that would be great for multicam studio use. Yes, rigging out a zcam, because the body is so small in there, you know, you don't have to turn it into a big cinema machine like this. You could very easily mount them permanently as small little studio cameras. But the question then becomes, which of these is the one that you want for that? You know, do you need one of these flagship ones with the S6, F6, or F8? Or is the E2C more suited for that? So hopefully this is going to help you get an idea of which one might work. Peter's in here, has an F8, awesome. So Peter, oh, and it looks like you still love your base E2 for a lightweight setup. So Peter has experience there. So like I said, I'm no super expert on zcam. I had to do all this research and educate myself as well. And I am an owner of the F6. But yeah, Peter says, you know, he has the base E2, still uses that for a lightweight setup. And then when he wants that 8K full frame, he says the F8 is his workhorse. So there is something in this lineup for everyone. And you know what? I should just get back to the presentation and start showing you what there is. Trevor talking about wanting IBIS. Yeah, that is a feature that would be nice. But anyway, we can always dream and always want more, right? You know? All right, so here's our models there. Let's move right along. So the first thing I wanted to break down is break these down by sensor size. Okay, so obviously there are various sensor options in these camera bodies, but I sort of broke it down into the 3 main categories. You've got the 4/3 CMOS sensor. You've got a Super 35 CMOS sensor, and you've got a full frame CMOS sensor. Now obviously these will be different types of those sensors, but in terms of sensor size, those are the 3 main categories. So under 4/3, you've got the E2C, you've got the original E2, which I put a note there, it has a WDR or wide dynamic range 4/3 sensor. So the E2C does not have that wide dynamic range sensor. But the E2 and the brand new E2 M4 do have that wide dynamic range sensor. Not 100% certain if they're the exact same sensor, but they were both noted by zcam as being wide dynamic range, while the E2C is not. Then in the Super 35 category, holding it strong on its own there is the E2 S6. Of course, you can kind of tell by the designations there. The S in, pardon me, more T. The S in S6 obviously being for Super 35. So that makes it a little bit easier to denote that. All right, and then we move to full frame. Now, there are 2 different full frame sensors. There is a 6K and an 8K full frame sensor in the F6, obviously 6K, and the F8 and 8K. So hopefully this, I know it's an oversimplification of the sensors, but just to give you that easy sort of top-down look at what we've got going on, I thought maybe that would help to break it down. So there you can see, all right, you've got 4/3, you know, micro 4/3, you've got Super 35, and you've got full frame. Now, I was talking about that E2G camera. That one actually was a 1-inch CMOS sensor, and it has the added thing of the G, which actually is global shutter. You can find that on their website, but like I said, I couldn't really find it anywhere else, so I didn't include it in this presentation. So I don't know if that's something that is old and they've kind of discontinued, or maybe it's something that's new and is just not readily available. I'm not sure. That E2G is a weird one, but we're focusing on our main 6, and they fall into those categories of 4/3 inch sensor, Super 35, and full frame. So depending on, maybe you have an existing lineup of glass for cameras that you've been using forever. You know, if you're a 4/3 guy, micro 4/3, or gal, then you have that E2C, the E2, and the E2 M4 that have the right sensor for you. If you like shooting Super 35, you've got that in the S6. Or if you have a full lineup of full frame glass and you've always wanted to start shooting some full frame video, you've got the F6 and the F8 in there. Let's see what we've got. Francis Tam, zcam is supported by the CCP. Please don't support the Communist Party with your money. I'm not gonna respond to that. Let's see here. Communists make the best cigars. That is true. I was very happy when we could get Cuban cigars again here in the U.S. I have become a little bit of a cigar guy. Actually, I had one outside on the deck in the beautiful weather last night with my brother. It was very nice. But no, I'm not going to start a whiskey and cigar channel. I've already got too many things going on my plate here. And then Trevor says, I think the M4 is actually smaller than a Micro Four Thirds sensor. So I'd have to look at the actual, I'd have to look at the actual size in millimeters of them. I just lumped them into these three general categories because it was listed as being a 4/3 CMOS for that new M4. Obviously, they might be slightly different sizes of that classification, but you can find that on their website if you wanted to really take a deep dive into it. But this breakdown that I'm giving you right here is really just, like I said, it's a big sort of lumping them into categories to kind of help you start being able to see which zcam might be right for you and what category they fit into. Because man, all these things have so many specs, it's crazy. Gear Jones is in the house. What's up, Derek? Good to see you, man. Glad you could make it. If you got some interest in zcams, hopefully today's presentation will help you make some decisions. All right, so the next one, we're gonna start seeing some numbers here. You ready, guys? Because obviously the sensors are gonna have different resolutions and frame rates and capabilities for all these cameras. So our next slide is all about max resolutions and frame rates. Now, I wanna point out that I did note here that word max, okay? So obviously, I didn't wanna go through and put every single resolution and every single frame rate that these cameras can do on here. Instead, what I did was went to the extremes. So maximum open gate, maximum DCI, so that's like 4K DCI, 6K DCI in some cases, maximum cropped, so the maximum that it can do with some kind of crop going on in the sensor. A lot of them do stuff in 2.4 to 1. Max UHD, which is a 16:9 format. So you'll have that standard 16:9 as opposed to the DCI, but the max that you could get at that. Then I went for frame rate, maximum frames per second in a non-16:9 format, because some of them get frame rates, actually they all get higher frame rates in some sort of 2.4 to 1 crop, my bad. And then just a maximum frame rate in 16:9 format, a maximum slow-mo, so this is whatever format it may be, whatever crop it may be, whatever codec it may be, but the slowest that the camera can go. And then for those ones that do have ProRes support, what is the maximum it can do in ProRes. So I'll leave this up on the screen for a second here, because there is a lot of data here. Again, guys, there are so many other frame rates and resolutions for all of these cameras. I went for the maximums. So if you're like, okay, I want a slow-mo camera, you can look at this chart and say, okay, let's look at the max slow-mo. Who can go the slowest? All right, looks like you're looking at that M4 at 240 FPS or the E2 at 240 FPS. But it's going to be 1920 by 1080, H.265 only. So hopefully this chart will help you out there. Now, I know there's a ton of stuff on here, and you guys are probably going to have to look at this again and pause the screen and really dive into it. You don't have to do that. because what I have done for you guys, if you go into the description down below, I have actually taken this entire presentation, all these slides, and exported it as a PDF, and I have made it downloadable for you. So don't worry about having to, all these things fly by you too quickly and everything. If you go down there, you can download it, you can look at it at your leisure and really dive into it, because like I said, there's a ton of information on here, and there's even more information that's actually out there. And I pulled in just the things that I thought were most relevant, and it is still a ton of data. So don't worry if it disappeared on you and you weren't able to look at it. But let's take a quick peek again at that chart, because man, we got a lot going on. So let's see here. Let's do an example. Let's say, okay, I want to shoot ProRes. Who can shoot the highest resolution and frame rates in ProRes? So if you go down to that bottom line there, you can see, okay, you've got 8192 by 3456 on the f8 at 30 frames per second, but it's going to be a 2.4:1 crop, so you're going to have sort of that widescreen look. Well, not sort of, you will have that, widescreen CinemaScope look to that. So that's the highest it can do. The f6 can do a 6064 by 4040 at 30 FPS. So that's a 6K ProRes. S6 can actually do a little bit higher of a resolution ProRes, but remember that is a different size sensor as well. So yeah, there's a ton of information on here that you'll be able to take a look at. So let's see here. I'm peeking at the chat real quick here. Furwork said, yeah, let's see. It seems like the 4K 160 is a special sauce on the M4. Yeah, so the M4 is the new one, and you see it's the third one in line here. And if you go to right about the middle, so look at the max FPS non-16 by 9. Yeah, look at that. And even the max FPS 16 by 9, you're getting, actually they're the same, but yeah, you're getting that 120 frames per second, or 160 frames per second, I'm sorry, in a 6K. So that's pretty impressive. I don't know why I have max FPS. I don't know why I have that 3840 by 1620 at 160 FPS in the 16 by 9 format, because that is actually a 2.4:1 format. But you get the idea. 160 FPS in 4K on that M4. Pretty impressive. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. Jason saying, thank you for making this presentation available. Of course, man, gotta share it. This helped me get my head around what's going on with the zcams. And so, of course, I knew it would probably be helpful for other people. So, of course, that is available for you. So feel free to go ahead and download that. But don't peek ahead. If you're watching live, don't peek ahead yet, okay? Stay with us here. We're only on slide 4 of 7, so don't jump. Trevor's saying the S6 is packed with features, very nice price too. Yeah, we're gonna get into the prices as well, because we haven't even talked about that. Right now, we're just talking about specs and the capabilities. I mean, we're throwing around 6K ProRes UHD like it's just something that every camera has, or 8K ProRes. We're like, oh yeah, of course, okay, that one can do that. This is impressive, from a company that a couple of years ago no one had really heard of. So that's interesting. So Jason saying, what are the main differences between the E2 and the E2 M4? Well, Jason, there's quite a few. Are you talking frame rate? Are you talking resolution? Are you talking sensor? Are you talking body? Are you talking mount? Because there are quite a few differences. So I'll continue to go through and show you the next following slides, and hopefully you'll see some more of the differences between them. So let's go up to here. And Jason, I will try and give you a little bit more of a breakdown. Sorry, I told you to just basically stay tuned on that. But the next slide I want to talk about here is, I mentioned mounts. So we've done sensors. We know which ones have different sensor types. So here's those sensor sizes. We broke down some of the maximum resolutions and frame rates here. But now let's talk about actually getting lenses on these things, because there are some different mount options. So here we go. We're going to talk about the interchangeable mounts. So a lot of these do have interchangeable mounts, and some of them have fixed mounts. So in the Micro Four Thirds fixed mount category, meaning that's what it is, that's what you get, you can't change it, you have the E2C and the E2. So those guys are Micro Four Thirds. It is hard built into the body. You're not going to be able to change it. Now, with the introduction of the flagship line of cameras, the S6, F6, and F8, and now also the interesting M4 that kind of bridges the gap, all of those have interchangeable lens options. So I purchased mine, and you can find a lot of them for purchase with the standard Canon EF mount on them, or some you can buy with the PL on there. But you can get these different mounts to put different camera or different lens types on there. So if you wanted to swap out and put a Micro Four Thirds mount, that Micro Four Thirds mount will work on the E2 M4, on the S6, the F6, and the F8. Not particularly sure why you would want a Micro Four Thirds mount on a full frame sensor, maybe in some of those crop modes, or maybe somebody who's more clever than me knows of some uses for that. But those are what it is listed as being available for. The EF mount you will see here is available for the S6, F6, and F8. From what I was reading, it is not available for the M4. So the M4 cannot take that EF mount. I'm not exactly sure why, and maybe it was just a typo or something that it was left out of the information, but all the information that I found did not list the M4 as being able to handle that EF mount, which is interesting. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But the PL and Leica M, it can take those. So the M4, S6, F6, and F8 can both be fitted with an Arri PL mount or a Leica M mount. Now, not all of these mounts are available at this time. I think they're coming soon for two of them. I know the EF and the PL are readily available. The M, I think some are in stock, some are coming soon. The MFT, I think, is coming soon. But you're going to be able to have all these different options to really tailor your camera, whichever one it is, to whatever lens system that you want to use. Okay, so here we go. Trevor's giving us some insight. He says, you can probably get much higher FPS with Micro Four Thirds on a large sensor. Yeah, probably because you can, there we go. I guess that's true. You could have a cropped mode where you're really cropped in on the center of the sensor, so you don't need a full frame lens with all of that wasted space. You can focus just on that part, and that's where you get those higher frame rates. That is true. And Trevor is also saying there are some MFT lenses that actually cover Super 35. Furworks is saying, is it an active EF mount? Yes, it is. I do believe, yes. So it will talk to lenses. I use all manual lenses, so it's kind of irrelevant for me. But yeah, if you put an EF lens on there that's electronic, it will talk. You will have iris control and all that kind of stuff through it. So yes, it is. And the interesting thing about these as well, let me show you. So you may notice that they look, the EF and the PL, and actually the M, they look a little bit different than your standard kind of mounts like that, where you put the lens in and then twist the lens to lock, because these are actually cinema style locking. So they have that outer ring, and you actually put the lens in, you line it up red dot to red dot, and then you actually rotate that collar on the mount, and it locks the lens into place. I've actually really been enjoying this. This is similar to Metabones, their speed boosters. They have cine versions of them now that do this same kind of locking. I really do like this kind of lens mount. It feels more secure. And once you get the hang of doing lens swaps, with that style, it's, muscle memory and nothing really much to it. But I did want to mention that because some of you may look at that and be like, wait a minute, that doesn't look like my normal mount. Trevor saying PL mount looks super interesting. I'd probably go for that one myself. Yeah, it's great that these options are all available. So depending on what type of lenses, you know, I have all EF lenses. EF, no problem. If you work PL, get PL, no problem. If you're Leica M, get Leica M, no problem. You know, as long as you're in those 3 flagships, the S6, F6, and F8, or the new E2 M4 with all except the EF mount, I believe, is the research that I found. So you can do Micro Four Thirds mount, PL, or Leica M on that one as well. So that's pretty cool. If you go with the E2C or the E2, you're locked into Micro Four Thirds, but you know, that might be fine. So let's see here. Furworks is saying, yeah, I think my Micro Four Thirds, Miki, I'm not even going to try. I've read that word so many times. I think that's the first time I've ever tried to say it out loud. Cine's actually cover Super 35. So just because the lenses are Micro Four Thirds mount, yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're only covering a Micro Four Thirds size sensor. So you can get really creative with the types of lenses that you can put onto these sensors. It's really cool. It can be also overwhelming if you don't know what's going on out there. Rob saying, regarding the MFT mount, with that mount, you can use a speed boosting adapter for EF glass. There you go. Put the Micro Four Thirds mount on there. If you have both Micro Four Thirds glass and Canon EF glass, you can speed boost. Or if you didn't want to speed boost, you could pick up both of the mounts and do a swap. I've never done the swap, and obviously it's not something that you want to do while you're in the field and be like, oh yeah, let me just swap the mount real quick for this next shot. No, you'd probably want to do it at home before you go out on a shoot or whatever. But yeah, you could have multiple mounts in your kit and adjust accordingly. But yeah, you're right. Micro Four Thirds, you could then speed boost and go to something else. I mean, shoot, you could speed boost to Nikon glass if you wanted to. So yeah, a lot of options there, and that's the beauty of Micro Four Thirds. It really is that you can adapt everything to it. Good old tea. All right, moving on, charging on. Have I lost anybody? Not too much information yet? All right, good, we're hanging in there. Let's go over back to the presentation. So there we go, we talked about the lens mounts. Now, another physical attribute to keep in mind, especially if you are rigging these cameras up, is that they actually have different body types. So there are 2 main categories of these body types. There's the original E2 body style, and then there's what is kind of referred to as the flagship body. Now, they are different. The original E2 bodies are a bit smaller. So if you're buying a cage for, you know, for your zcam, you want to make sure that you're buying a cage for the proper body for the camera that you have. So this is, you know, this doesn't make such a huge difference obviously in how the camera works because you know, they still have mounting points and all that, but it is something that I thought you guys might want to note. And one really interesting thing is that E2 M4. So the M4, as I said, kind of bridges between the flagship guys, the S6, F6, and F8, and these original guys, the E2 and E2C, because it actually has a lot of the features of both. You know, you're looking at a Micro Four Thirds sensor in it, but it has the flagship body and it has the interchangeable mounts that you find on the higher end Super 35 and full frame models. So the M4 is a really, really interesting camera in there where it's like, okay, I don't need all the craziness of the flagship models, but I would like their body style. I would like the interchangeable mounts. You know, it does have some higher resolutions and frame rates than the E2 and the E2C. So it is slid really into an interesting little spot in the lineup of their cameras. So I know a lot of people are really excited about that M4. Simon chimes in, "You sound like a grandpa." Do I? What does that mean, Simon? Why you got to come in here and troll me? Simon Eisenbach, everybody, man, troublemaker. You should go check out his channel and heckle him in his live streams. No, I'm just kidding. Not about checking out his channel. You should do that, but don't heckle him. He's a good guy. Good to see you, Simon. Tomas and Liza says, M4 is smart entrepreneurship by zcam. They did all the research and design. So with little investment, here's a new product. So smart to leave out the sync option to drive down prices even further. Yeah, so there are a bunch of other additional little features that these cameras have. You know, they've got Ethernet to allow live streaming directly from them. They have, some of them have NDI built in, if you're familiar with that, for live streaming and all sorts of stuff. I didn't want to get too lost in the weeds with all that. I really wanted to just look at like the basic functionalities and differences between these cameras. But yeah, the M4, as I was just saying, it slots into the lineup brilliantly. Merging that, like I said, bridging between the Micro Four Thirds E2 and E2C and those bigger flagship models. It really is hitting the sweet spot in there. All right. So that was it on camera bodies. You know, I mean, maybe not the most interesting, and obviously probably not a big deciding factor for you in terms of which one you buy, unless you really want an interchangeable lens mount. You know, that's going to be the biggest capability difference between the camera bodies. But I wanted to let you you know about that. All right, back to the presentation. I'm going to take us to our final slide where we're going to do a bit of a roundup here. So here we are. All right, a lot of info on this one. So I've basically taken the highlights from each of those slides that we've looked at already and kind of put it into one place. So hopefully this will be a one sheet for you to take a look and see some of the differences between them. Obviously, as I said, there's so much other information that I could have put on here, but I mean, the chart would have been, you know, 6K resolution itself with, you know, the font being too small to see without a microscope if I put all the info on here. So we just got the top level factors here. So there we have the models. You can see what they look like. We have their mount options that we talked about. We have the sensor size. You know, obviously there's more specs to these sensors, but these are just their general size. The maximum resolution, remember that is maximum resolution that they do. So there may be a crop or it may be at, you know, a reduced frame rate. Codecs, so this we hadn't really talked about, but I wanted to put that in there. Most of them all do H.264 and H.265. Actually, they all do. But not all of them have ProRes and not all of them have Z-RAW. As you can see, the E2C does not have ProRes or Z-RAW. And the M4 has Z-RAW, but as far as I could tell, no ProRes. So, you know, there are some trade-offs in there. Here we have recording options. You know, a lot of them take CFast, all except that E2C, which is SDXC, but all of them that I found do have the ability to record out over USB-C to an SSD drive. So you always have that option if you don't want to invest in expensive CFast media. There's the body styles, you know, the E2 body and then the flagship bodies. And finally, here's the prices. This is crazy. You know, these are pulled directly from their site and they may change because even recently, as just a week ago, there was a huge price drop on the, I believe the S6 dropped $500 to $24.99 here, and the F6 dropped $1,000. It was $4,999. Now it is $3,999. That is crazy. I will admit, I'm a little bit sour about that because obviously, you know, I would have preferred to have been able to get it for $1,000 cheaper because I have the F6, but thus is investing in, you know, in tech and gear. You know, the prices are going to go down, so I can't be mad that that it's now available to people for $1,000 less. Just, it is what it is, you know. But these prices are great. You can see where they all fall in the lineup. You've got, you know, the E2C coming in there at $800. You got something available in the M4 at $1,500. The original E2, you're sitting at $2,000. Then you've got a $2,500. You've got a $4,000, and you've got obviously at the high end there about $6,000 for that F8. But you're talking full frame 8K ProRes Z-Raw. Like, guys, this is just, we're looking at the highest price of all of these was $6,000. I mean, talking competing with larger cinema cameras and stuff like Reds and even the Red Komodo. I mean, like, there are so many options in here that are affordable. I mean, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 here that are under $3,000. Actually, 4 that are under $2,500. So it's crazy affordable for their capabilities. It's pretty sweet. Trevor's saying, they still need to be careful not to fall into the trap Apple used to. Too many products that are close in feature sets create consumer confusion and opportunities for competitors. Apple used to have so many computers. You know, I agree with you completely. And that's actually was one of the inciting factors for why I wanted to put this whole thing together. Because even I, as a consumer, was starting to get a little bit confused. I'm like, wait, what does the M4 do that the E2C doesn't? And, you know, it's a lot of SKUs and a lot of similar SKUs. If you guys don't know the term, SKU basically is, you know, a product number. But it's, you know, it was getting a little confusing where it's like, okay, what really are the differences between these? And so I had to look. I went in there, you know, I knew for the most part, but I wanted to make sure that I did my due diligence and did some digging and could really tell the differences and kind of break these down. Because like I said, if I found myself getting confused, obviously, you know, other people out there are going to be confused as well. So that was the reason for putting this together. And you're right, you know, they do need to be careful to not put so many out there. Because, yeah, I mean, they may have great features and all that stuff, but at some point it does become dangerous because the consumers get a little bit confused and they're like, I don't really understand. There's too many of them. You know, which one do I choose? And can make it a little bit difficult. Let's see here. Furworks is saying, pardon me. I feel like with the M4 at $14.99 and the E2 and E2C need to come way down in price. Yeah, that's a good point. So let's pull that back up. So I did pull these from their website, from the zcam website. I believe these are still the prices, but let's take a quick peek real. Here, I'm going to the good old B&H app on my phone just to confirm. Let's see here, the zcam E2. Yep, these are the current prices. So you're absolutely right. You know, with the M4 coming in at that 1500 mark, it does kind of feel like maybe the E2, at least the E2, might want to come down in price a little bit, but who knows? We'll see. You know, they are priced competitively. It does have the added bonus of ProRes. So you're not getting that flagship body with the interchangeable mount option with the E2, but you are getting the addition of ProRes, which you don't get with the M4. So it's kind of a trade-off and then a plus $500. So think of it as, you know, you're buying a ProRes license for it, I guess. But, you know, you're right. You know, they may adjust these prices. You know, out of nowhere, they dropped that F6 by $1,000. It was selling at its $4,999 price, and they just said, you know what, we want to make this more accessible to people, and they dropped it. Trevor's saying, I wonder why they don't all have an SDXC slot. Yeah, you know, I'm not sure. You can see here the E2C is the only one that has an SDXC, but it only has an SDXC. So maybe it is space limitations in the body itself, although I can't see an SD card slot really taking up too much space. But yeah, you are at this time only getting CFast slots on all the others, and the only one with an SD card slot is that E2C. And Gear Jones is saying, have you worked with Z-Raw? How's it compared to B-Raw? All right. It's admission time. I have both Blackmagic cameras and the zcam, and I have not shot B-RAW or Z-RAW. So I cannot speak to it. I find that in my workflows, ProRes is the way that I go. I shoot 6K ProRes on this quite a bit, and actually that sample video that I had, that I have on the channel, there's a link to, was 6K ProRes. I've done some slow-mo 4K with this. Actually, if you check out my studio rebuild series, you make sure you go check that sucker out. That playlist is a lot of fun. But the last episode, episode 3, I had some slow motion where I was knocking a wall out with a sledgehammer. The wide initial shot of that actually was on the zcam, the f6 here, and at 120 frames per second, 4K, 2.4 to 1. A lot of numbers there, but you know, so I'm shooting with it and testing it. But the RAW formats I have not worked with because I really don't work with RAW very much. Now there will come a day, and obviously I do need to go out and I really should just put them on tripods side by side, do some testing, you know, f6 versus Pocket 6K or Pocket 4K, B-RAW versus Z-RAW. I should do it. I haven't. I'm sorry. So unfortunately, I can't speak to that. But if anybody out there has played with Z-RAW, if you are a zcam owner, I know we've had a few people in here who are zcam owners. If you can leave some comments down below after this video is done. If there's links to any samples or anything like that, or if you just have comments from your personal experience, if you have worked with Z-RAW and what you think about that. And, you know, I will go and do some testing with this more. And if you want to stay updated, make sure that you also tune into or join the Discord. There is a link down below, sort of like a 24/7 live chat, you know, direct connect to me. And I do post some samples and some stuff on there as much as I can. So if I do some testing, I'll try and put those up there. All right, let's see what we got here. Big Easy Picks. Won't the E2S6 with the MFT mount restrict the max resolution? Not necessarily. Okay, so MFT is just the mount, which is really just the physical attachment that the lens uses to get on there. So if you did put a micro four thirds lens that only covers a micro four thirds image sensor on there, yeah, you'd be vignetting, or you'd have to crop in on the sensor, you know, with one of those other resolutions, because that's all you're going to get out of your lens. But as some people have mentioned, there are some lenses that cover Super 35 sensors, but have a micro four thirds mount. So it's referring to the attachment method. So you still could have a micro four thirds that you pop on there and could cover your Super 35 sensor. Or as somebody else mentioned as well, you could then speed boost and say put Nikon glass on there. Say you got a whole bunch of Nikon glass and you're like, I can't use Nikon on my Zcam. Yes, you can. So there's a lot of options and ways to get in there. And instead of limiting us and making the decisions for us, Zcam was like, here's a bunch of mounts, pick what works for you, have fun. Kind of cool. Kind of cool. I think I saw I was getting shamed in here. Trevor's talking a little bit about Z-RAW. Yep, there it is. Trevor was saying, oh, shameful. I know, I'm so ashamed. I promise. I have these cameras and I haven't tested every function on them. What is wrong with me? You know, it's not like we've been on, you know, under quarantine and I've had time to play with these things, right? I have. It's my fault. But he says, I believe Z-RAW files are larger and have more noise than B-RAW. Interesting. I have not checked that out. And I believe you can only process Z-RAW with Zcam proprietary software. I believe they were working on plugins for Premiere at least. But yeah, I'd have to keep up on that. And actually, I do want to say a great thing about Zcam is they have an extremely active Facebook group. So I have a link down below to that Facebook group. Owner or someone who's interested, I would go in there, join that, and check it out. Because there are samples, there are new features. You know, the CEO, Kinsun, is in there posting stuff like every day, either what they're working on or new firmware updates or new features and all sorts of stuff. So that is the way to keep up to date and to really see what the latest is and samples. And of course, there's tons of people in there. It's a really cool community. I'm in there, but if you are interested in a zcam, or if you're a zcam owner, check out that group. Get in there. There's a link down below. Let's see here. Furwork saying, do you know if they have a stills frame grab function? I am not sure, but I think it might. You use that on your Pocket 4K surprisingly often for thumbnails. Yeah, I've actually done that a few times too. I was sitting there and I was like, how do I do it? I was like, oh wait, it even has a dedicated button for it. Done. But I'd have to take a look. Gear Jones, me too, brother. Tim Nye, can't you now shoot Z-RAW if you have an Atomos Ninja? No, but you can now shoot ProRes RAW. So this is something else. Talked about it a bit last week, but see, we could talk about Zcams for forever. But they have partnered with or been working with Atomos, and now over HDMI, they are able to record ProRes RAW to the Atomos Ninja 5 recorder. That opens up a whole new world of possibilities if you are a ProRes RAW, lover and you're working in Final Cut. Actually, in that same news article, Premiere Pro has now been updated to handle ProRes RAW too. So I guess it doesn't matter what you're working in. But if you want ProRes RAW, now it's capability. The reason I didn't include it in this chart here is because it does require a product from another company. You're talking about, getting the Atomos Ninja recorder to put on there to do it. So it's not actually a capability necessarily of the camera, it is a capability of that combo. And so I didn't include it in this chart, and also we could get lost in the weeds very, very quickly. But do know that Zcam is working with Atomos, and the capability is out there to record ProRes RAW over HDMI from these cameras. Pretty sweet. I mean, they've got all sorts of other tricks. Like I said, they got Ethernet connections. They've got, Wi-Fi. They're cool cameras. It's almost overloaded to take a look at all the specs and things that it can do, which is why I recommend you go check out that Facebook group, because they are adding some really cool stuff you can do via apps and NDI and all sorts of crazy stuff. It's nuts. Basically, I turned mine into a cinema camera. A standard, grab it, aim it, frame it, record it, take the card out, put it in, cinema camera. But you could connect these up over Ethernet. You can use them as studio live stream cameras, even without a computer. They've got some crazy stuff going on. Like I said, we could get so lost in the weeds. And no, I'm not sponsored by Zcam. I'm just very impressed with their innovation, and so far I've been very happy with the camera that I purchased. I know it sounds like I'm like singing their praises like crazy, and no, I have not left my Blackmagic fandom behind. I have Panasonic cameras, I have Canon cameras, I have all that stuff. I just want you to know, just the one that I'm having a love affair with right now is the Zcam. So, Trevor says, oh yeah, and I see Captain Jackson here too. Says when the Canon R5 ProRes 8K comes out, they might lower their prices to get people to move to a modular system over the mirrorless photo cameras. Very good point. And then Trevor's also saying, I think the recent price reductions already take into account the arrival of the R5. So that is interesting. Maybe Zcam is seeing that, okay, we may have we're going to have an 8K full frame ProRes capable. Does it shoot ProRes? I don't know. I don't think so. But anyway, an 8K full frame camera coming out from another competitor that is getting a lot of interest. No pricing available yet, but maybe zcam was like, you know what, let's drop ours down a little bit and make them even more accessible to people, just in anticipation of the arrival of the R5 and subsequently the R6. And that's very smart of them. You know, if they can afford to do that, and they're like, yeah, you know, that's fine, it's not hurting us and it's going to get our cameras into more people's hands, that's a good business decision to keep an eye on the market, because let's face it, like I said, zcam is pretty new, and Canon is a giant. So, you know, you got to keep your eye on these others and compete. And I think they're doing a very good job. I'm impressed. Captain Jack saying, good point. Yeah. Trevor saying, probably the best thing about zcam is their Facebook support community. Yes, I agree. Other manufacturers could learn a lot from zcam. Customer interaction is so undervalued. That is 100% true. Like I said, if you have problems, if you have questions, you know, in that Facebook group, they're great. And they come up with stuff, they listen, they ask for feedback. It's awesome. Let's see. Yeah, Shiz, not a fanboy, just passionate. Yeah, you know, like I said, this is what I'm excited about right now, is this one, you know. I like my stuff. There is one thing that I didn't put in here that I did want to mention, though. So one of the coolest things about those flagship bodies is that they have a little slot in the side, and a little slot in the side next to the lens. Sorry, I'm doing this a little funky. Where you can add this optional accessory. So what this is an electronic ND filter. So no built-in ND on the way that they come standard, but they had the forethought, let's keep the dog hair off my ND here. They had the forethought that, hey, we want to be able to add this when we perfect this. And so they came out with this module. They already had the slots in there. And in that mount, it goes right into the side, clicks in, and then you have electronic ND control from 1.7 stops to I forget what the maximum is, but controllable in the camera. You can set a function button to it. You can go ahead and adjust it there. So now this camera, yes, it is an additional accessory that costs about 400 bucks. So you're shelling out more money, but it really completes this for me. Electronic ND, and then if I don't need it, I can pull it out and put the clear filter back in. Something that obviously they had planned. Now, keep in mind, this will work on the PL and the EF mount. I'm not sure about the M mount, but I know those are the ones that it works on, but it won't work on the S6, I believe. I'd have to look into that, but I don't believe it fits with that particular mount for that sensor. Just keep in mind. But yes, Gear Jones, what is the cost for the END? It is $399. So there's a link down below if you want to check it out. But what's the cost for the END? Yep, we just talked about that. And is it variable? Yes, it is variable. You know what? I'm going to quit talking about it, and we're going to pull it up and take a look. That's my bad. I should have pulled it up. I've got stuff all over the place here. All right, closing out my slideshow. We're going to pull up our zcam END. Hey, Devo Cut, what's going on, Devin? What a rig. Yeah, I kind of went crazy and beefed this thing up. And if you want to see how I beefed that up, segue, there's a link to the live show where I go through all of the things that I attached onto my F6 over here to turn it into a cinema beast. But let's go ahead here. Let's pull this up. I should have been more prepared. Thus is live. Here we go. Here is the END. So it is for the flagship models, as I said. So, oh, I guess it does work for that. So yeah, just basic, let's see, does it say in here? So yeah, S6, F6, F8, EF, and PL mounts. is what it says the compatibility is. And yeah, it is a variable ND. Electronic variable ND, you know, sort of like you would get in the, where you started to get in the...
Prairie is a 1947
Siri, I didn't ask you, or...
Alan Baxter.
My Amazon lady is telling me about the prairie for some reason. Alexa, stop. What is happening? All the machines are coming to life. What did I say? What did I say that made her think I was talking to her? I don't know. Anyway, made me lose my train of thought there. Trevor says, the worst thing you can do is sell someone a product for thousands of dollars and then leave them on their own. This is exactly why luxury car brands invest so much in showrooms. That's very true. Yep. You know, the zcam, you're with them all the way. They cater to their clients. They become lifetime buyers instead of opportunistic consumers. Very good way to put it. I like the way you put that there. And Captain Jack says, how much have you invested in your rig, not including the head and tripod? I don't know exactly, but we can just take a quick peek at this guy before we wrap up here. See if you can kind of see this. So you'll get a much better sense of it in that episode where I really went over it. But, you know, I have this Portkeys BM5 monitor up here. So that's probably about, you know, $500, but it is fantastic because it's a touchscreen, allows me to control it. I do have the Tilta Nucleus Nano follow focus system, pretty affordable at a couple $100. A bunch of small rigging on here, little battery plate on the back. This is something I am testing right now. This is a wireless video transmitter from Hollyland, so that costs nothing. Matte box is from Bright Tangerine, and then lens is my one of my Schneider Xenons that I have on there right now, and then that END in there. So I don't know. You know, how far do you want to go with it? You know, are we including the lens? Are we including whatever? $1,000 in the rig, not including the lens, in additional stuff maybe, would be my guess. But I don't have exact numbers on it. And I can't give you exact numbers because sometimes my wife watches the streams, and if I say what I spent, she'll know. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not kidding that she sometimes watches, but she knows. But let's see. Let's get a few more comments in here. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know. We're going to wrap this up in just a few minutes. But was this helpful? Hopefully this stream was helpful for you guys and I wasn't just rambling about stuff you already knew. Hopefully that presentation helped to, at least on the big points, you know, help you see the differences between these cameras and where they fall in relation to each other. And of course, you know, if you missed and all that information was just too much at once, the presentation is available for download. There is a link down below. You can grab that, go through it at your leisure, and make sure that you check, you know, and know which camera might be right for you and which one can do what and which one can't and all of that. So, and then of course there's pages of additional specs on each individual camera. So like I said, I did sort of the top tier breakdown, but then you can go in and use those links and take a look at the camera in detail and really dig into those specs. Let's see what we got going on here. How much did I invest in the rig? I sort of mentioned that, but tactfully. Jason says, if you could have a wish list for a GH6, what would you want? Oh, I haven't even thought about that. You know what? I would have to give that some thought, and that would probably be a whole nother stream for a whole nother day. But I don't know. I can't think about that right now. I got to wrap this up, and that could take me on a tangent where I'd go forever. But you know, we'll maybe do some camera wish list things in a live stream where we can discuss you know, what we want to see in our perfect camera or something like that. So that'd be fun. Trevor says Apple does the same thing, by the way. The reason I buy Apple is that when something goes wrong, I want to go to an Apple store Crazy little thing, they give me a new one. Yeah, there's support there. Just saying, Apple ain't getting into this household. All right, I got a lot of Apple, a lot of it, but yeah. Trevor's saying, are you going to buy any more zcam cameras? You know, I have considered it. I've been really happy with this f6 as a big cinema camera, but I was considering, you know, maybe the E2C to replace my Panasonic G7 that I have for my streaming camera. You know, it's only, you know, it's about what, $800. I don't need it to do any crazy recording, but I can get that image quality and I can get that color science. And, you know, I might be able to upgrade this. Or when I'm building my new studio, I'm going to want a ceiling mounted camera, and maybe I want some other permanent studio cameras. Some of those, you know, lower end Z cams could be perfect for that. Obviously, I don't need to be shooting 6K full frame or 8K full frame. I don't need to go crazy with that. But some of those micro four thirds sensor ones, even the E2C at $800 could be a great studio camera for my new studio. So I will have to consider that and see if that's the route I want to go in the new studio. So I have really been thinking about it, picking up more because, like I said, they can fit into every type of use. It seems like all the way from webcam up to cinema cam. So it's kind of a cool lineup, but that also is what makes it difficult because it's such a big lineup of cameras. Shiz says, invest in yourself, your skills, and in your gear and reap the benefits. Thank you. Ranger 7 says, this was fantastic. Great. That's all I wanted, was for it to be helpful to somebody out there. And hopefully that does. Perspective Caribbean, excellent job. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good. I'm glad you guys got some use and information out of it. And we're getting to the end, talking about... Captain Jack says, sounds very affordable for a cine rig. Yeah, that was just my guesstimate based off of what I got going on here. If you really do want to see in detail, for real, I do have a link down below to the live stream where I go through every piece of the rig that I put onto this zcam. But anyway, guys, we are at 2:11 p.m. here on the U.S. East Coast. So we have gone for quite a while, but we fit everything in. That was a lot of information, but I'm glad we were able to go through it. If you guys have any further zcam questions after the stream, please feel free to put them in the comments down below. I will make sure to go through there. If there is some stuff, particularly on my f6, you want me to test and check, you know, Z-RAW that I need to get into, let me know. And of course, you can also ask for, you know, ask questions and stuff in the Discord. There's a link down below. And if you are not, for some reason, I can't think of why, but just in case, if you're not subscribed, I mean, go ahead and click that subscribe button down there and that notification bell, and then you'll get to hang out with me and all of these fine people every time we have a live stream. And I'm pretty sure you'll get some more zcam content from me in the future. So there we go. But anyway, guys, this has been great. Subscribe, join me on Discord, download that presentation so that all of this, you don't have to try and internalize and remember all this information. And I'll see you guys next time. This has been awesome. And we're going to peace out. Take care, everybody.